Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Picture this. You're at the end of a grueling sprint, you're in the conference room, everybody's watching, and you hit run on your notebook. Boom. The charts populate perfectly, the predictions absolutely flawless. The team is literally smiling, you're getting a standing ovation. You did it. You actually built intelligence. But then reality happens. It's a messy reality. Something really strange happens to almost all AI projects, the exact moment real users touch the system. A file format changes out of nowhere. A dashboard just breaks. A store manager completely loses trust because, well, the numbers are 2 days old. An alert fails to fire, and a user quietly just goes right back to their old, comfortable spreadsheet, completely ignoring the system you just built. Right, exactly. And it really makes you ask the core question of this whole thing. What actually happens to AI after the demo? Because let's be honest, faking intelligence once in a highly controlled lab, that's kind of easy. But earning trust out there in the real world, man, that is incredibly difficult. So here is our roadmap for how a fragile prototype actually survives reality. We are going to look at the illusion of the demo, how products are promises, the shape of responsibility, the roads of intelligence, learning without losing control, and finally, testing before trust. All right, section 1, the illusion of the demo and the messy reality. I'll admit it right now. My initial notebook for my last project worked perfectly. I had the exact right CSV, the right parameters, everything was just so clean.
I know, but the real world never stays still, does it? The demo entirely hides who is actually refreshing that data. It hides who checks the schema or what on earth happens when a supplier delay is entered completely incorrectly.
Right, totally. And this brings us to a really stark contrast. A demo basically just proves something can work once.
While a system proves it can keep working. Really, a system is simply a promise, repeated over and over through time, even when the real world absolutely refuses to behave politely.
Moving on to section 2. Products are promises, moving beyond features. So I've got to ask, when that system inevitably breaks in the real world, is the answer to just cram in more AI features? Like, do we just throw a larger language model at the problem?
No, not at all. That is such a common trap we all fall into. You have to completely shift your perspective here. Products are not features. Products are promises.
Think of it this way. A data product is a repeatable decision experience. It's a fundamental promise made to the user to actually support their human judgment. Look, if a manager just gets a stockout risk score of 0.81 with zero context, that is just a feature. But if the system explains that demand just spiked, inventory is unusually low, and they need to check the reorder status today, now that is a complete decision experience. And this brilliantly illustrates what the user is actually going through. Just picture a really busy manager. They're in a stressful morning meeting, they're staring at a tiny mobile phone screen under immense operational pressure, and they need to make a rapid decision. Real people operating under that kind of pressure need clear answers. They do not need complex academic outputs. Exactly. It boils down to this. People do not consume outputs. People make decisions. True usefulness is all about delivering the right information at the exact right moment. A system only becomes truly useful when it actually respects the day of the person using it. Okay, section 3. The shape of responsibility. Architecture without jargon. Now, whenever we start talking about architecture, my brain immediately jumps to those insanely complicated cloud diagrams, endless boxes, technical overload, the whole shebang.
Let's strip all that technical fog right away and just focus on first principles. Architecture isn't really about how all those little cloud components connect to each other. It's fundamentally about how responsibility is divided up.
Think of it just like city infrastructure. You've got hospitals, roads, electricity networks. Architecture is what organizes human accountability. Who actually observes the data source? Who reasons with the model? Who acts through the agent tool? And absolutely crucially, who checks the work with actual human review? Aha, so architecture is responsibility made visible. Wow. It's not about adding complexity just for the sake of complexity. Without clear boundaries between the data, the model itself, and the end user, both blame and understanding just turn into this massive fog. It's really about knowing exactly who is responsible for what piece of the puzzle. Which brings us to section 4, the roads of intelligence, the quiet pipelines. If architecture is the city, then data pipelines are the roads. And we really need to stop thinking of them as just background plumbing. They are the quiet, critical supply chains carrying the evidence that all this intelligence depends on. Simply put, A model cannot possibly be wiser than the road that brings its data. So the crucial point is that these physical roads have to rigorously check the evidence before the AI ever even gets to see it. Like freshness, is the data actually recent? Completeness, is all of it there? And meaning, does it still represent what we actually think it represents? Because if your sales data is from this morning, but your inventory data is from last Tuesday, the AI absolutely shouldn't just confidently guess the answer. Precisely. Never let a beautiful output hide an unready input. Sometimes a well-designed system just has to bravely refuse to answer in order to maintain its trust. A missing answer that gives a clear reason is vastly better than a highly confident answer that's built on completely broken evidence. All right, Section 5, Learning Without Losing Control, Demystifying MLOps. I have a huge confession here. I have a deep, deep fear of MLOps. To me, it just feels like this giant storm of buzzwords, registries, containers, and this wild obsession with tooling. What is the simple human explanation for all of this? I get that, I really do. But MLOps is simply learning repeatedly without losing control. Look, having an AI learn once in a static notebook, that's the easy part. But machine learning models fundamentally change their behavior when the real-world data changes, even if your code stays exactly the same. Controlling that learning over and over again and doing it safely, that is the true discipline of MLOps. Now, what's really interesting here is the contrast in how we handle memory. Human memory fades, right? We forget things, we improvise, we delay, but a reliable system requires a strict versioned memory. It literally needs to remember exactly what dataset trained it, what specific features were used, and exactly what threshold turns a simple score into an actionable alert. And that leads into Section 6, Testing Before Trust, the heavy responsibility of deployment. We really need to start treating the whole concept of deployment not as some technical milestone or just a button you click on a Friday afternoon right before you go home, but as a profound human responsibility. It's like physical, real-world safety. Earning trust before launch is absolutely crucial. You wouldn't just let standard traffic cross a brand new suspension bridge you haven't thoroughly inspected, right? AI software deployment is exactly the same. You have to run it in shadow mode, get rigorous analyst review, roll it out to a small pilot group, and closely monitor the whole thing. You are actively discovering the system's weakness before the users ever do. Exactly right. Deployment is not a button to be pressed, but a trust to be earned. Yes, the deploy button itself is just a simple mechanism, but the decision to expose an AI's actual behavior to real human users, that carries immense consequences. You are fundamentally changing how real managers prioritize their attention and how they trust their evidence. And that leaves us with one final, truly provocative question to close out this explainer. I want you to really think about the projects you are building right now. Is your intelligence just a beautiful demo that gets a massive standing ovation in the safety of a lab? Or is it a real promise that you can actually keep when the real world inevitably gets messy? Keep building, for sure, but please, build with responsibility.